great job introducing. Is there anything else that any of the judges want me to go over before we get started? Oh, the chosen resolution.
We
Um,
can paste it in chat once again.
yeah, it's the one about speaking ill of others behind their back. I think Josh is putting it in chat now. Yeah. So are all the judges good to go, or is there anything else that? Okay, awesome. That being said, I will start as soon as I finish up my timer on my first word. This is going to be a fairly standard speech. First, just some characterizations, some definitions, all that good stuff. Then 3 contentions from side government. So we're going to say that this house is just like some individual who exists generally in the kinds of social spheres that we all find ourselves in. And we're going to say that the framework is obviously self-interest, right? This is probably just like most other people. They ultimately care about the things that influence them. We're going to say that like annoying means, as we use it colloquially, something that just sort of like mildly irritating, mildly angering. Like, yes, maybe this is more than just mild, but we think that like ultimately these aren't things that are, say, truly threatening or truly like very malicious. Like, for instance, if someone was racist, we wouldn't call it annoying. We would call it like something that's like genuinely really bad. We're going to say that annoying things are things that just will generally slightly anger or annoy you, but this isn't going to be something that's like this is just like an awful, awful person who's saying these absolutely, like very terrible, reprehensible things, right? We think that like annoying doesn't have the sort of like moral connotations of like someone saying something evil or something like that. We're also going to say that like speaking ill just means generally being like, I think this is an annoying person. I don't think this is a good person. And we're going to say the fact that the phrase is specifically speaking ill implies that there's some sort of bad intentions in how you're approaching the conversation. I think this is pretty intuitive. If we say that someone's speaking ill, we mean that they're talking about this other person with bad intentions. And also just worth noting, the person you're talking to probably knows both of these people, which is to say that like if I know someone from Bulgaria who Josh doesn't know, I'm probably less likely to talk to Josh about this person. But like even in the cases where like I might be talking to Josh about someone Josh doesn't know, most of the impacts here still apply. That being said, our first contention is on your relationship with this like annoying person, right? And the top level observation here is we think they're likely to figure out that you're talking ill of them for a couple of reasons. First of all, we think the way the social scene works is that you get capital by talking bad about others. It just gives you something you can talk about with other people, and it gives you capital in the sense that like you're the only one who has this like insider knowledge about what like your friend said about someone else or something like that, right? But even if you start out, only telling like a close friend of yours these things or something like that, first of all, people who are currently your friends might not stay your friends. Like most friendships end up, ending in some way or another, or even if they don't totally end, you might have like a fight, in which case, even if you told them something in secrecy, your friend is likely to say, tell someone else because they no longer feel the sense of obligation to you. And we also think that more importantly, when you start speaking ill of other people, even if initially it's just people you say really trust, you develop that habit. It normalizes that behavior in your mind. And so you're more likely to, I don't know, slip up and say bad things about other people, even when you wouldn't have wanted to tell them this. And we also tell you that finally, since it's likely you're talking to a mutual acquaintance, it's likely that, maybe they'll tell this person. So what are the harms here? First of all, we tell you that like the conflict becomes amplified because as stories get passed on, they get simplified, right? What initially might have been a very small annoyance ends up seeming like a really bad thing after it's passed through like the mouths of 4 people who are just trying to make it seem like they have this big social information. But we think that especially a big harm if they find out is like, hey, this might be someone who has power over you, right? If you're talking about like your boss or your teacher or something like that, and they find out that you've been calling them annoying behind their backs to like all your coworkers, they probably are going to try and actually punish you beyond just the social ramifications. And finally, we think this makes it much harder for you to develop a relationship with someone in the future. The second subcontention here is that you end up ostracizing this annoying person, right? They feel like they're part of the out group and aren't going to be included in like your group of friends anyways. So they no longer have any incentive to try and be nice to you because they think you're always going to be antagonistic towards them. We also think that they're more likely to become more annoying towards you because they know that you're being mean to them behind their back. So they probably like you even less, which means that this annoyance gets amplified. The third subcontention here is on misunderstanding, which is to say that maybe this is a somewhat close friend of yours and you just found something to be mildly annoying, but when they learn about it as if it's behind their backs, they feel a sense of like betrayal that you were talking about them behind their back. And it's more likely that this gets amplified in the sense that like it's harder for you to understand what they're thinking and for them to understand what you're thinking when you're not having a direct conversation. And this is a long-term impact. The third subcontention here is on empathy, which is to say that like maybe they're being annoying because they're actually going through something emotionally or physically difficult, gives you a limited bandwidth to like be kind and generous to other people. And so what this means is that when you now start talking about, poorly about them behind their back, you might be hurting someone who's already in an emotionally difficult situation, which could have really bad ramifications to them. The second contention here is on your own social standing. First of all, we think that just being a person who talks about other people behind their backs, first of all, you get a general reputation as yourself being annoying and lacking trustworthiness just because you're the kind of person who speaks ill of other people. Second of all, we think that like the relationship between you and the person you're telling this to gets worse because because for instance, maybe the person you're talking to is friends with this person, and moreover, the person you're talking to might say, hey, I actually don't agree with you. I don't think it's good that you're talking ill of this person. Third of all, it's possible that other people don't find this person annoying. It's possible that just you subjectively find them annoying, in which case other people are just going to think you're kind of like silly and annoying for being mean to someone who they think is a really nice person. And then fourth of all, what if you yourself are someone who doesn't have a lot of social capital, someone who's on the out groups of whatever social scene you find yourself in? We think that then you become seen as this like wannabe outsider who's just criticizing the in group, which makes it even hard for you to sort of like gain the kind of social acceptance into this in group that you want, whether you're in school or in a work environment. And then finally, the third contention here is on a bad culture, right? We think that, first of all, in terms of the general social scene, when this conflict, say, becomes amplified because people are just talking about it behind each other's backs and there's no direct engagement here, it's more likely that it creates this sort of like narrative, counter-narrative distinction where like people are picking sides in some sort of given conflict between these two people, which we think creates a more generally antagonistic culture. We also think that when you start talking bad about other people to someone else, like if I'm talking bad about someone else to Josh, Josh is more likely to talk bad about me to someone else because he doesn't feel bad doing it because he knows that it's something that I also do, which means that this increases the chance of other people, talking bad about you. Maybe this increases the chance of people like spreading false rumors about you or something like that. And the final thing, and this is really important, is the self-selection of a friend group who partakes in similar behavior, which is to say the more time you spend, saying bad things to other people around you, the more other bad people who also speak ill of others and who also say play into social conflict are likely to want to be near you because they see themselves in you. So we think it's more likely you become friends with toxic people, more likely you become friends with people who also aren't trustworthy and who will also talk about you behind your back, which obviously means that you don't have friends you can actually trust, which means that you have no one who you can go to if you're, say, emotionally struggling, and it increases the chances that you're socially ostracized. So just to sort of recap here, we think it's likely this person ends up figuring out, which means that, first of all, they're going to be more annoying to you. If they're going through something hard, it becomes even harder from there. If they're dealing with like a family conflict, now they think no one likes them. This really hurts their mental health. But at the same time, it hurts your social standing because you're seen as someone who's okay with speaking ill about others behind their backs, and that's the kinds of friends that you end up with. For all those reasons and so many more, I really couldn't be prouder to propose.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Cosette Calderon. I'm going to be the first speaker for the negation side today. Sorry, getting rid of a notification. Okay. Is everybody okay if I give an off-time roadmap telling you guys what I'm going to be doing? I'm not seeing anyone opposing, so I'm going to go ahead and give one. So first, I'm going to go on to some top of case stuff. Then I will be going on to our 3 contentions as the negation, and then I will go on to rebut my opponent's case. I'm going to have 8 minutes on my clock. My time will begin, if everybody's ready, with 3, 2, 1. Hello, judges. We strongly negate the resolution that this House would not speak ill of annoying people behind their backs. So first, let's start off with some definitions. We agree that this House could just be, a reasonable, rational actor, just somebody you find on the streets. We also agree with their definition of annoying. We say that it's like small irritations or bothersomes, right? And then we say that this weighing mechanism should be net benefits, the most amount of good for the most amount of people. They say that it's based off of self-interest. We're going to win under either, but we think it should be net benefits because we're not only considering your own self-interest as the House, we're considering the other person's self-interest as well, and overall society self-interest.
POI.
Yes.
Do you think any individual actor would sacrifice themselves to help other people, like their lives to help other people?
Yes, absolutely. Think about people who save kids from getting run over by a bus, right? Like, I know that's an extreme example, but that's one example. Another example is parents raising their own children. They give them more food to eat than themselves. Anyways, going on to our first contention, catharsis theory. Our claim is by venting about people behind their backs, we are able to process our emotions, lessening the effects of mental health issues. Our first warrant is that venting is an outlet for processing. Subpoint A, by not talking about somebody or how they annoy you, what they did to you, you are forced to suppress your emotions. Subpoint B, by suppressing emotions, it increases the sympathetic nervous system activity. What does this really mean? It means that you can have unhealthy consequences. Research shows that bottling up emotions can make people more aggressive. Subpoint C, studies also show that effortful suppression of negative emotions has immediate and delayed consequences for stress-induced cardiovascular reactivity. Subpoint D, talking problems out loud has shown decreased chances of suppressing emotions because of people talking through their issues, and you get other people's perspectives, advice, and are able to work through how you feel and why you feel that way. Warrant 2, suppressing means a more violent and depressed society. Subpoint A, by not processing emotions long term, we logically understand that those emotions are going to continually increase. Subpoint B, one day they're going to overflow, and there are two potential outcomes. One, you're going to explode at the annoying person, or two, you're going to have a mental breakdown from suppressing all those emotions and letting them out. Subpoint C, if you explode at the annoying person, there's a situation in which you work or have to see them becomes tense, which is going to worsen your anxiety as this house. Subpoint D, if you have a mental breakdown, the immediate impacts go to you. You're going to be crying, you're going to be screaming, you're going to be upset, you're going to be constantly hyperventilating, right? So the impacts are what? One, there's going to be a more violent and tense relationship between the two people. And two, we're going to see more suffering from anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Terminalized, we see long-term roads to recoveries are hard, often leading to cyclical mental breakdowns. Okay, second contention, social pressure. Intentionally being annoyed from somebody over time degrades and dehumanizes yourself. This power imbalance makes direct confrontation impossible. Warrant 1, bullying. Subpoint A, oftentimes bullying is done in small intervals, microaggressions to the victims. Subpoint B, these intentional annoyances degrade somebody over time. Subpoint C, the victims are often left isolated in the situation, unable to speak back to the person attacking them. This is for a variety of reasons. One reason is that the person might fear escalation, like confrontation, or two, the person might feel pressure to conform. If they see nobody else standing up to the bully, then they probably won't stand up for themselves either. Warrant 2, isolation and organization. Subpoint A, when people begin sharing their experience to each other about the bully, people can feel less isolated. The feeling of victimhood will be shared with people and they're able to connect with others who have the same experience. Subpoint is that the harm of being targeted is lessened as you see that you are not alone in the attacks or even just the annoyances, the everyday struggles of dealing with the annoying person. Subpoint B, speaking about somebody also allows organization. So I to this is that multiple people standing up to a bully likely results in better results than going alone. Double I to this is that by validating your experiences with others, you can gain confidence in your own advocacy. What are the impacts? One, less social isolation when bullied, and this results in less dehumanization and emotional suffering. By standing up to bullying, there is solvency for their long-term standing harm to people. Our third contention is about marginalized groups. Marginalized groups often face microaggressions, small acts of irritation that target them for their race, sex, ethnicity, etc. In my opponent's top of case, they talk about how in order to speak ill of somebody, you have to have bad intention. We see that's not in all cases, but it can be. And for microaggressions, it might be, but not necessarily. It's not about the intent of what you're trying to do. It's about the results. So microaggressions are seemingly small but constant attacks on somebody. They often ignore in larger groups because they are seen as small annoyances, and this can lead to long-term degradation and dehumanization. So warrant 2, by allowing people to have similar experiences, discuss about what's happening in the social situation by the annoying person, we're allowing them to be able to organize with one another to find solutions. While small local movements only solve the local issue, it creates a larger culture of justice and equity. The impacts are 1, greater justice and organization for marginalized groups. So point A, this leads to less dehumanization and suffering overall. Long term, it creates a culture of defiance, social progress. Okay, now going on to rebut my opponent's case. Let's start with their first contention. They talk about how the person will ultimately find out that you're talking bad about them. We say that that is a possibility, we agree, but we also say that's a low possibility. And they, in their own case, explain why. You're talking to the people you trust most if you're talking about something that's annoying you, right? Like I go to my best friend who I've known since I was 3 to talk about people that maybe annoy me or when I've had a hard day. They're not going to go turn their back on you immediately, right? It doesn't really make sense. We're going to say there's a low probability of that. The second thing is they say you're going to develop a habit. We say this is actually long-term a good thing. Why? Because you're stopping involving yourself in relationships that are directly annoying you and affecting your mental health. They also go on to say something that's small will eventually grow, and they say that the person has power over you. We say one, if you're talking bad about a teacher and they punish you for it, there's a thing called rules, right? You go to the front office and you say, hey, this teacher gave me an F on an assignment that I clearly did not deserve an F on. That teacher's going to get punished. Or if you're working in a boss, you could fire even like a lawsuit or something like that. Maybe extreme, but it is a possibility. There are rules in place. The second thing is there's a low probability you would actually be talking about people who have power over you. Like if I know my teacher's in the room, I'm not going to go talk to my best friend about that teacher right in front of them, right? Again, you're talking to people who you actually know. Okay, they also go on to say that you're going to ostracize this person. We have two responses. The first thing that we say is there's a low probability that person's going to find out. My opponents try to say that like people are going to think bad about you, so they're going to turn on you, but you're talking to people you care about. They even said that in their own speech. So we're going to say that's a low probability impact. And second of all, we say if the person finds out, that's actually probably going to be a good thing. Why? You're talking about things that are annoying to the general population, right? It's going to give them a chance for character growth. 3, they say close friends. Your close friends are going to turn on you. We're going to say turn this to us. Your close friends are going to be most likely sympathetic towards you, right? They care the most about you. They want to make sure you're okay. They're going to listen. The second response we have to that is that's good. We want to be talking to our close friends. Why? Because even if they disagree, they can give you a different perspective. Going on to their second contention, social standing, they say that like people aren't going to agree with you. It's going to turn them against you. We say fine. People are going to get better perspectives. It's going to help your own self with character growth. It's going to help you process your emotions more. The third thing is social scene. People are going to pick sides. It's going to create an antagonistic culture. We're going to say this is a really low probability. Like think of the status quo. People talk about people behind their backs. Like even in work situations, we're not seeing entire businesses collapse because one friend picked the side. We also say that you're probably talking to family members or like close friends outside of the workplace or school place or wherever you're talking about. So they're probably not going to find out, and it's probably not going to actually cause mass chaos. I strongly negate the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. All right. So I have a few seconds for an off-time roadmap. First, I'm going to address op case, which I think will have a lot of cross-applicable refutation that will then apply to the gov case. And just building back up, I will begin my time on my first word. Okay. 3, 2, 1. First, on this idea of venting, I think it's really important to discuss here what exactly proper routes for venting and proper routes for dealing with the issues you're going through are. What is not a proper route? Going to someone who may potentially turn on you to, for lack of a better word, and I'm going to be using this word a lot, like shit talk someone who did something bad. That is not an appropriate way of dealing with an issue. What is an appropriate way of dealing with an issue? Say, go to a therapist, or perhaps have a genuine sit-down conversation with the person that did something against you. Why is it bad to go to a friend or go vent to someone that you think is going to help you? Well, first, there is like the very high probability that this friend is someone who is emotionally immature or someone who is an instigator. And this is really often. We all know that one person who you go to for help with an issue and all they tell you is whatever they think is going to instigate action or make something more interesting happen. That is always a possibility. That is our first response to this idea of venting. Second response is that there are just like simply other ways to get your emotions out that don't involve talking to anyone at all. Or sorry, this is our third response, such as like listening to music or working out. These are all options that exist for work that aren't necessarily going to amplify the issue or make it worse. And that's where we get to our fourth response on this, which is the delta here, which is like you're not actually going to prolong and amplify the issues you are venting about in the first place. So like the real problem with this whole idea of venting is that if the entire purpose of venting, if the end goal of venting is to make yourself feel better about the problems, to make them not recurring issues, to make it something you can get over, it's counterproductive to go talk about them such that they spread and go to other people. You don't actually get any solvency on their side. On our side, when you're not having like this veil of solvency by talking to someone else about it, but not actually addressing the issue, you aren't going to get anything done. Why is it really important that you vote gov on this? Ultimately, we take away this like venting veil of solvency, which is really only making the issue worse, and tell you that if you're directly able to go to the person or speak to a therapist or a mental health professional, you are actually able to deal with these emotions in a constructive fashion that isn't just like venting with a person that might instigate or make you feel worse or just like temporarily make you feel better. None of this provides solvency. We give you like a long-term solution to this problem. Fifth response is that the annoying person doesn't necessarily cause stress on you as they are annoying to everyone else. Ultimately, like they may not be mean or toxic per se, they are simply annoying. We think that there's somewhat of a mischaracterization here. We're not talking about like a racist bigot who is shoving you into the locker every morning over what you were doing. We're talking about that one guy who's just like boisterous and loud and you just want to like get that out. Like we don't think this is actually going to be like having you crying in your bed because that's not what you label as annoying. That's what you label as evil and mean and bullying. We think that there's a big distinction to be made there. Now onto like the next thing they tell you in their C1, which is on this idea of like exploding at them and that like that's the greatest risk in this round. Judge, we tell you that you ought to judge us on the same timeline as you are judging them, which is to say that if you're going to explode at this person right after they do whatever annoying event is in reference, you're going to explode at them in either world because the venting is going to be retroactive no matter what. So really we're just discussing like whether or not you retroactively speak to someone about what they did or what actions they took to annoy you. Why isn't doing this going to prevent you at exploding at them in the future? 4 reasons. One are the chance that you speak to an instigator. If you speak to that friend, like me personally, I wouldn't let that slide, and like that's their response to what this annoying person did, then obviously you're going to get bad advice that's going to make you more likely to explode at them. 2, I tell you that it's going to solidify your perspective on them, which is to say that if you go to your friend and you're like, yeah, this person is so annoying, and all they tell you is like, yes, that person's so annoying, they have absolutely no values, no morals, then once again, you're more likely to explode at them. 3 is the amplification of all issues, which I already told you about. So like if you are like, you know, if this gets spread, if this person starts to be antagonize you more, become more ostracized, you antagonize them, etc. 4 is on misunderstanding, which is like what you said about them gets spread, and ultimately like the whole issue just gets amplified through like the telephone game of gossip. So really, I think that the chances of exploding are much higher in this world filled with instigators, filled with extra misunderstandings, filled with all that on their side than it is on ours. Now onto like the third response here, which is just simply on like better alternatives. Really importantly, our advocacy for a situation like this is directly speaking to the person involved in like a fashion that is constructive. Now, this may not be applicable to all scenarios. In some scenarios, it may be better to speak to a therapist, let's just say, but we tell you that like this actually solves the problem. It gives you the sense of closure. Whereas venting to someone may be a short-term temporary solution that gets rid of your anger, when you see them the next day and they once again do something to set you off, you're still going to feel that like soothing rage at them that you get, or like that rage that you had in the first place. Ultimately, if you actually speak to them directly such that they don't aggress you in that way, it's going to stop happening. And this is unique to our side of the house, and we think that is something you can very directly vote for Gov on. Now onto their C2 on social pressure. Really, really importantly here, you are speaking ill of an annoying person, not a bully doing annoying things. I wouldn't call my tormentor an annoying person. I would call them my tormentor. It's not annoying getting shoved into a locker every day. It's evil and cruel. And here's really like the turn here, which is the chance that you feel more isolated if others don't agree with you. And this is really important. They say there's like this social pressure that you can like relieve by speaking to others, but what if you don't relieve it? What if you make yourself feel worse because I go to my friend and say, this person's really annoying, and they say, no, they're not. I think they're the kindest person in the world. That's how you feel really socially isolated because you tried to turn to someone and it failed. So we think that just as likely as it is that like you turn to someone and get like, you know, this sense of comfort, you could also get the sense of increased isolation if they don't agree with you. Another turn is the retribution from bully point. I think we've touched on this enough, which is like gossiping amplifies the issue. And our final response here is that talking to others about what you're going through or to confront the bully is not the same sort of like ill-intentioned speaking ill we frame this to. But that doesn't really matter. Onto their C3 on marginalized groups. First and foremost is like our same response that we're going to keep telling you, like a racist bigot is not someone who is an annoying person that is a racist bigot. I think there's a clear distinction there, and I don't really think it's fair. They didn't call our definition abusive, so we're going to stick with that. But beyond that, we tell you that like if you truly want to make this person a better person and get rid of their microaggressions, you shouldn't just be like, oh, this person's so racist and they don't even know it. Like, obviously, that's counterintuitive. If you really wanted to make them a less racist person, you should say, hey, these microaggressions aren't making me feel warm and fuzzy. Can you please stop doing them? That's the only way you can have an actually constructive conversation in which something good comes out of it. Now let's get back into the Gov case. The first thing we tell you here is on the fact that like your relationship with the annoying person is going to get ruined because they are going to find out. Now they basically tell you like there's a low probability they find out. They don't really give you anything other than like I know who my close friend is. A few reasons why this won't really apply. A, we tell you friends change. Your best friend today will be your enemy tomorrow. That can always happen. Second, we tell you like actually who you gossip to is less likely to be your closest friend as much as it is to be someone you feel you can gain like social capital by talking with. When you speak poorly about someone, it makes it feel as if you are above that person. It empowers you and you hope that the other person agrees with you, but if they don't, you're screwed. We tell you like trading gossip, mutual acquaintances, all that. What are the impacts here? The conflict is only going to be amplified, etc., etc., etc. But we'd like to remind you that it is not likely you're talking to your closest friend. It is likely you're talking to someone you are going to gain social capital through. Now onto their C2, onto our C2 on like this house's social standing. They basically tell you like processing emotions is also going to help amplify your social standing. This doesn't really make sense. As we already told you, the chances of exploding go up on their side of the house. The chances of this turning into a much bigger issue in just about every capacity possible go up on the op side of the house. But ultimately, no matter what, if you are seen as the gossiper, as that person who has no ability to actually help people or have any empathy for that matter, and instead the only route to action you take is just like, yeah, this person's racist, but I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to let them keep suffering socially. That's not a great reputation to have. That's not someone I would want to be friends with. And now onto our C3, and this is where you vote because I think they didn't really address this problem like in the best way possible. I think that the self-selection here point is a clear gov ballot, and I really want you to flow this through, judges. Ultimately, what we're telling you is that if you are known as the person who likes to talk poorly about other people, if you are known as the gossiper, the people you are going to attract are other gossipers, other people who like to talk ill about other people. What does this mean for you? It means that this house is now going to have people all over the place saying that they are a bad person and that they are a bad actor and all of the above. Final issue here is on the net benefits framework. We think that it makes absolutely no sense to frame this from a net benefits perspective. Ultimately, people act in self-interest. You are the actor in this house. You are always going to be acting in what the capacity that is best for you. You also literally cannot know the impact of the many actions in reference, so you're unlikely to decide on what this is going to do for other people. Whereas, given that their entire case is also centered around self-interest and venting and making yourself feel better, we think this is a pretty clear place to vote. And we ask that you continue to weigh on self-interest. And with that, I urge a government ballot. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Delgado. I'm the second affirmation speaker today. So quick off-time map. Oh,
Negation.
Negation.
Yes, for negation.
Negation. So we're going to go down the 3 points of that we opened the debate with, our 3 contentions. They're going on to the affirmations case. And unless anyone has any questions, which I'm not seeing any, my 8-minute time begins in 3, 2, 1. So again, hello, my name is Dan Delgado, just getting right into it. We opened this debate by talking about our first contention of cathartic release, being able to relieve your stress by talking to other people and to vent to people. They give a few responses to this. First, they say there's proper routes for venting. They give 3 reasons. One, they say you shouldn't go to someone you know because they're going to be immature and emotionally unavailable. We say that's non-unique. They're saying go talk to the person being annoying. We say if anything, there's a greater likelihood that that person's emotionally immature too. Everyone in the situation is emotionally immature. Saying you shouldn't go talk to the person you know because they're immature, or then you shouldn't go talk to the person that's being annoying because they're probably immature too by their logic. That's a wash. It doesn't make sense to not go talk to someone you know because they're immature. The second thing is therapist. We agree therapists are the best option here. However, we have a few responses. One, this is clearly just not practical for the day-to-day person to go to a therapist every day about every annoyance. And 2, a lot of times therapists cost money. There's a lot of other barriers to getting a therapist: time, money, being able to access it in your location. We say that's not practical for any single person, only for the people who have direct access for it. It's not a good solution. The last thing is that they would rather talk to the person directly. We say a few things to this. First, we say, well, if you're saying the person you know is emotionally mature and won't be helpful, we say that's only greater with the person that's annoying you. If anything, you have already an antagonistic relationship with them. If they're annoying you constantly, probably you don't like them, and there's a chance they probably don't like you based on their analysis that people don't like you annoy you more. So we're going to say that that's not going to be productive, because a lot of times that is going to lead to an immature handling of the situation, and a lot of times you're going to see just escalation overall if you tell someone something they've been doing has been annoying you. The next thing they say is there's other ways to handle about, like working out and other ways to do it. We say, yes, there are other ways to handle stress, but that's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about social isolation. So yes, there are other ways to get stress out, working out, like self-care, whatever you want to do. But we say social isolation is the primary thing we're talking about. I'll take it right in a second. We say that working out and all that helps stress like reduce, but we could also say that that still leaves you socially isolated. Someone who's working out every day could still be socially isolated and alone to themselves. Yeah, I'll take it away.
If your proposal is like talk to close friends of yours, is this really a socially isolated person?
No, but what we're saying is the affirmations advocacy is don't talk to those people. So we are saying by not talking to those people and isolating yourself, we are saying that's social isolating yourself in that situation, right? If you're being annoyed and you can't share it, that's socially isolating. Okay, going on, they say it's counterproductive to talk to people. They say there's no solvency. We said, yes, there's absolutely solvency. Talking to other people, one, gives you better understanding, right? They can give a different perspective. They can maybe calm you down. They can tell you you have a wrong perspective. 2, there's also solvency in the case that you can say that, like, well, the people you're talking to, they could also help affirm your suspicions, right? There's like go time back into our racism and microaggressions, right? There's a better understanding of what's going on. So in that case, there is solvency because you stand up to the bully. Next, they keep saying that, well, people aren't racist. like, well, they say racist people aren't the annoying ones. It's just like that one guy being boisterous. We say microaggressions can absolutely be perceived as annoying, right? Like if you're in a situation where you're the minority there, a lot of times racism isn't being shoved into a locker, it's being left out of a conversation or being mocked jokingly, something that can be seen as annoying, but in greater scheme, it is a microaggression. So just because it's racist doesn't necessarily it's labeled as annoying. Annoying things can be racist. So that drop that whole point, racism can be just annoying in microaggressions. Next thing, we talk about blowing up, how it stops you from blowing up at a person. They say, well, you want to blow up right after, so there's no solvency. What we tell you is you blow up after many, many times of being annoyed by this person, not being able to tell. We say by talking to someone after every time that you get annoyed with them, that helps calm you down and reduces the chance of a blow up. Yes, we have solvency at that point. They say you go to your friend and they might only agree with you, so it's only going to make you madder. We say there's a higher likelihood that they actually give you a different perspective, right? If they don't think the person you're talking about is annoying, they can give you that perspective. If they are going through hard times, that person might know about it, so they'll tell you about it, so it calms you down. So there is solvency there. And also they say there's direct speaking as an option. We say, again, as their own analysis, that person would be emotionally immature, no solvency there. Going under a second contention about social pressure and bullying and microaggressions. Their responses are, one, it is not a bullying that bullies don't do annoying things. They keep saying shove into a locker. We say that's not an annoying thing, that's violence. Those are two different things. What we say is microaggressions, again, like being left out of a conversation, being mocked jokingly, things that people can label from the outside as being annoying, or even you might think are just annoying, could be actual systemic power issues of you being bullied. That is our case. Someone could have power over someone and be constantly annoying them, and that person feels isolated because they can't share their experience. Sorry, I don't have time. So we're going to say, yes, a bully can be doing annoying things. That doesn't lock them out. Again, shoving into a locker, that's violence. They also say there's an issue if others don't agree. Like if somebody's bullying you and someone doesn't agree with you, that can make you more isolated. We actually say, no, if somebody doesn't believe that person's a bully and you tell them, that shares the information that person's a bully, that helps that other person, and it gives them more benefits because they know that person's a bully now, right? It shares your experience. So it informs that person more and brings better benefits to everyone involved. And also go into organization, how we talk about being able to organize against a bully, right? That helps you out. And also they say ill intention, how like speaking ill about someone has to be bad intentions, not necessarily just venting. We say, like my partner said, intention doesn't matter. If you're talking ill about someone, you're talking ill about their actions. That doesn't mean yes, you have bad intention. You can have good intention and speak bad about someone's actions. Going on to our last contention about marginalized groups, the only real response here is racism is different. We say absolutely not. Racism is not different. Microaggressions exist, right? If you've already been going over this. And they said, well, one, you can just talk to them and tell the racist person they're being racist. That could be a solution for all racism, or just tell the racist person they're being racist. But oftentimes that's not how the world works. There's power imbalances, there's bullying, right? Someone can feel intimidated in that situation. We tell you the best way to handle that is to organize with the people, understand that you're not alone, and present your issues together, not necessarily just feeling alone that you have to go to this racist person and be like, hey, you're a racist, right? That's not how the world works. You need to have together solvency. Now, going back onto the affirmations case here, the first contention is about relationship and how it can overall ruin your relationship. We tell you that's a very low likelihood, and this is the kind of the big contention of our whole case. They say you only share people you want more like social capital with, not necessarily your closest friends. We strongly disagree. We say the average person is fully aware of the issues that come with talking bad about people. They're aware of the risks. They're aware that that person might share it. Because that likelihood, they're not just going to go to some random person they want to be friends with, like, yeah, you see that guy, we hate him. No, they're going to go to people that are very close, what they trust. People are aware of these issues, of relationship issues, of talking bad about someone, right? That isn't a hidden impact. They'll be aware of it. They would talk to people they only trust. And again, going back onto our point, turn this whole point, because what we're telling you is when you talk to people you trust, they'll calm you down, they'll give you a different perspective. And overall, we actually reduce escalation rather than talking to the person directly, right? It calms you down. It gives you a different perspective. So turn that whole point back onto the negation side. Next, they talk about ostracizing the person and saying like it's going to make them more annoying to you and it's going to like overall harm them. We tell you that actually it's going to be good for character growth. Let's say someone is actually just being an annoying, like boisterous person in your friend group. Sure, they might find out like you're annoying. So there's two possibilities. One, they don't find out at all, which is the highly likelihood issue, which in case no impact, they never found out. The second thing is if they do find out, well, in that case, one, they'll understand what they've been doing is annoying people, which gives them character growth, right? If I want to be annoying, I actually would rather know I'm being annoying rather than slowly drift away from people. So they'll actually get better character. I'm sorry, I really don't have time to take it at the end. And then the last thing is people could calm you down. Now, they give a few responses in the last speech. They say you're seen as a gossiper for not telling them. And they bring up again, just tell the racist person they're being racist. We tell you, one, a lot of times that's impossible. One, because of power imbalances, right? A bully, you can't just go tell a bully, hey, you're a bully without being intimidated. And the second thing is a lot of times, like they said, some people are going through difficult situations. A lot of times talking to other people, you could formulate a better way of approaching that person they're being annoying. If someone's genuinely just being annoying and they don't know about it, it's better to go talk to someone and be like, hey, this person's being annoying. How do we approach it as a friend group? How do we talk to them rather than going straight to this person like you're annoying, which probably cause more harm in the long run? And then the last thing they keep saying is this culture that you're only going to gain people that gossip, so you're only going to attract the gossipers in your friend group. Again, tie back. People know the risks of gossiping. They're only going to gossip to the people they trust, right? So you're only keeping it within your friend group. And also, everyone gossips to some degree. There's not like some people who are extremely more gossipy than others. So we're just going to say that, like, well, either way, you're going to have people in your friend group that gossip. The fact that everyone needs to talk to someone about something, right? And if you want to label that as gossip, everyone is gossipers. And for that reason, Judge, we strongly urge a vote for the negation today. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. Again, my name is Cosette Calderon. I'm going to just do a quick off-time roadmap telling you what I'm going to be doing. The first thing I'm going to be doing is telling you what we believe is the most important point in this round, or otherwise our collapse point. Then we will be going on to preempt what we believe the affirmation will try to do to win your ballot. And then 3, we're going to be weighing. Okay, I'm going to have 4 minutes on my clock. Is everybody ready? I think so. I'm not seeing any objections. Okay, cool. My 4-minute timer will begin in 3, 2, 1. Hello, judges. We still strongly negate the resolution that this House would not speak ill of annoying people behind their backs. Firstly, I just want to say what we're really talking about in this round. We're talking about mental health issues. We're talking about societal standings. We're talking about impacts to real people. Okay, so what do we believe the most important point is in this round? We have 2 main points. The first thing is that microaggressions can be labeled as annoying. Think about it. Somebody bumps your shoulder, right? Or somebody just doesn't include you in a conversation. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. And you might think that. But that could really be a system of aggression. That could be a system of racism, right? We talked about this in our speech. What does this mean? It means we need to have solvency for that. My opponents tried to argue that talking to your close friends, you're only going to have instigators, or you should just go directly to that person that you're having an issue with and talk to them. But we've given you responses, right? We've told you, 1, the people you're going to are going to be your friends. Why? That's the societal norm, right? But 2, if you're going up to talk to this person, there's a very large chance, 1, you're afraid of confrontation, you're going to be anxious, or 2, what's going to happen? It's going to escalate, it's going to become dangerous. 3, you might just be intimidated. If this person really is being microaggressive towards you because of your ethnicity, you're not going to want to approach them. You're going to need another outlet. So what solvency do we as a negation have for this? We allow people to talk to people, to gain organizations, to help gain support. And even if you don't buy that, at the very least, we're allowing people to have other perspectives, to decide whether or not it really is microaggression or not. The second most important point that we think you're voting for the negation on is character growth. My opponents give you 2 options. They talk about how you're going to go talk to your friends and you're going to have terrible social standing. It's going to look awful for you. Well, we say, 1, they're either going to give you a new perspective, so you're going to be fine, or 2, the person that finds out that you're talking bad about them because your friends supposedly rat you out in the affirmations world, they're going to want to change their behavior because they're being told they're annoying, right? So it leads to more character growth. We don't see anything like that in the affirmations world. The closest thing we see is that they go talk to that person, but that can lead to really bad issues because they're both immature, right? They're both having very already tense relationships. They're not going to want to talk to each other. So let's go on to preempt. What do we think the affirmation is going to do to try to win your ballot? 1, they're going to say, let's talk to people directly because it's a clearer solution. We say, 1, it can be dangerous in cases of microaggression, which we need to solve. Or 2, both of them are emotionally immature according to the affirmation, and they already have tense relations. Things are going to escalate and explode. You're not going to actually fix anything. 2, they're going to say you're going to become the toxic one in the friend group. People are going to leave you. It's going to be bad for you. We say, 1, this is low probability. Why? The people you're talking to are the people you're close with, the people that you want to know what's happening in your life because they're the people you trust. Refer back to my partner's analysis on this. What does that mean? It means long term, those people aren't just going to turn their backs on you because of one time they might disagree with you about a certain person. So now let's go on to weighing. The first thing we need to weigh against is this case against ostracizing. We believe that we actually access this impact more on self-interest. Why? Because if you are a marginalized group or a minority ethnicity group, you're going to want to gain more supporters in order to fight back against microaggressions that are deemed as annoying, right? We win on that because by venting to your friends, people who already support you, that word's going to spread, is going to be able to help you gain more support. So we win on breadth, first of all. The second thing that we win against is probability. We win off off of the probability that the chances you talking to a friend is going to gain you more support than talking to the person that is directly annoying you, because it could lead you to dangerous situations. And the severity, we went on severity. Why? The mental health issues that happens to you because of a mental breakdown, because you're not allowed to vent, meaning you're suppressing your emotions, meaning you're not processing how or why you feel that way, leads to less character growth, and two, less personal self-interest, because you're going to have continuous mental breakdowns. So overall, we win on self-interest. I strongly encourage a negation vote. Thank you.
Fantastic. Again, if anyone isn't ready, let me know. If not, I will start as soon as I set up my timer and take a sip of water. I'll start my time. Well, actually, before I get started, this being finals, I just want to say a huge thank you, obviously, to the tournament staff that did such a fantastic job running this tournament. All of the judges, I know some of the judges here I've had before, all of the judges who have been here for basically the best part of 2 days. Obviously, Josh for being just such a great person to debate with both these days. And also to side op, you guys have been great these past 2 rounds that we've done with you guys. That being said, I will start on my first word. So I think that ultimately at the end of this debate, a large number of things get misconstrued over the course of op block. And really, this is a pretty clear gov out. So first, I'm going to talk about a couple of pieces of content you get from op block, just re-clarify a couple things, tell you why you're not voting on the LOR collapses, and then where you can vote for us. So first of all, a couple distinctions that get lost. We tell you that you're talking to someone who is annoying, not a bully who is doing annoying things, right? At the end of the day, the most they can claim about this person is that they're just someone who's inherently annoying, not a bully doing annoying things. Because look back at the motion. It's about whether you speak ill of annoying people, not of people doing annoying things. We tell you that if someone's being like actively racist, this is more than just being simply annoying. You can just look back to our definition of annoying here. But then the second thing here is they try and make it seem like you're just talking to close friends of yours. And I want to draw your attention to the claim we make, which is that you build a habit of basically shit talking to other people. What response do they give you? They say it's good to build a habit of venting. What does this actually mean? They're saying it's good to build a habit of shit-talking someone to other people, which means that they implicitly concede that you're going to be building this habit, which means that even if you start off talking to just close friends of yours, you're going to end up talking to other people as well because you built this habit. The next thing is that talking to a group of people to intervene when that's your motive does not qualify as having a bad intention. Go back to our definitions, which they agree to. We tell you that speaking ill means speaking about this other person with bad intentions. We would say that if you're speaking just to intervene, this is probably a good intention and doesn't fall within the purview of this round. And then when they say that other people can give you perspectives, we tell you they kind of force themselves into a double bind here. Either the person you're talking to agrees with you, in which case you're not getting anything new, or they disagree with you and don't think this person is annoying, in which case you can look to our points, which is that this ostracizes you even further. Then they say it's not going to be possible to have a mature conversation with this person because you and them are obviously both immature people. I don't think this makes a lot of sense. First of all, it's possible that someone's just unintentionally annoying without being an immature person. We also, like, as Josh tells you, even immature people who are told to stop being annoying will probably own up to it. And finally, you can look to the point Josh gives you, which is really good, which is that even if their behavior doesn't change, there's still cathartic value to directly confronting the person as opposed to just dragging it out and talking to your friends. But now, why are you not voting on the LOR collapses? First, let's talk about microaggressions. I think that there's something that's really important to make a note of here. If this is someone who's intentionally causing microaggressions, they're more than an annoying person. They're a racist person, right? And side opposition themselves tell you that, yes, we're not talking about very annoying people. We're talking about people who are like unintentionally doing microaggressions, right? And so for now, we're talking about people who are unintentionally doing microaggressions. I think our idea of talking to them starts to look a lot more appealing, which is that, like, if you're talking to someone who's doing these like microaggressions because they don't know they're doing it, obviously the best solution is to tell them. And we don't think this person is going to be massively resistant because it's not like they're going in thinking that like you're inferior to them or something like that. And once again, you can get support from others on our side too. That's not talking about someone else with bad intentions. That's not in the context of this round, right? But then on this point of venting, which they don't even, which first of all, like we don't think they like weigh very heavily. This is probably not their collapse, but probably not where you're voting. But once again, I encourage you to look back to Josh's responses here, which is that like there fundamentally are other ways to get this annoyance out, right? You can talk directly to them, which gives you a sense of closure and also solves the problem in the long term. They never respond to our point that like there are other outlets for if you're feeling bad, like you can play music, listen to music, like play a sport. Like we tell you, there are other outlets people have. This goes unresponded to. So that being said, where can you vote for us? A couple of clean faces that basically get dropped. First of all, we tell you that this person is going to start being even meaner to you because they think that you're someone who's like talking bad about them behind their back. Why are you going to weigh this heavily? Because it means that any mental health impacts they give you necessarily get worse, because if that's how bad it was when they were being like moderate level of annoying, when they become even more annoying, every impact is necessarily going to get worse, right? If they're like mild microaggressions, maybe now they become worse microaggressions that cause a higher burden on your mental health, that makes it harder for you to confront them, right? It gets harder to solve the problem because they start becoming more antagonistic. They're less open to discourse with you. They lose a lot of their solvency. But then there's this point that goes dropped, which is about the other person's mental health, which is that, like, I don't know, maybe this person is facing a really bad time in their mental health, and that's why they're accidentally lashing out. We think that the personal guilt you might get from, like, I don't know, what if this person, like, attempts self-harm or does something else like this? I think that the personal guilt here is really big and really long-term. Sure, maybe you can solve every other impact by, like, going to a therapist or something like that, but we think that this inherent guilt is really hard to solve. And ultimately, like, I don't know, if you feel bad for someone else's mental health crisis, I think that's worth than any mild annoyance that any of us might suffer. And then finally, on this point of self-selecting into other people who are annoying, we think that sure, maybe you're talking to your best friend of 3 years, but when your best friend of 3 years of like since you were 3 sees that you're now the kind of person who keeps talking ill of other people, they're fundamentally not going to want to be with you if that's not what they do, right? This is the fundamental analysis you get from PM. And I don't think it's actually gets responded to. And we tell you that this prerequisites venting, because if you're now surrounded by people who themselves aren't trustworthy, you have no one you can actually turn to. So this preempts all of their impacts. For all of these reasons, I really couldn't be prouder to urge a proposition ballot in this round.
Thank
Great
you all
round.
so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Great round to finish out the day.
That was a really fun round too.
Yeah.
People of color in solidarity, would talk about these microaggressions, and other people, having been on the receiving end of that, I can tell you it is very cathartic, and it's very, you don't necessarily want to confront the person that engages in this behavior, because usually they're gonna be defensive. So this is just something that you're better off telling a close friend, and if you can't afford therapy or you can't. But anyways, that was a really real phenomenon, and I'm grateful that Benicia brought that up, and that for me is what they basically sold me on that argument. And I'm sure personal experience, having been on that end, helped understand that dynamic and why, it's not just a minor irritation. There's some real harm there that's created when those things happen.
All right, I voted for, you guys can hear me, right? Okay, I voted for I went back and forth so many times. Does not surprise me that it turned out this way. It would not have surprised me had it been 5-0 one way or the other. It was that freaking close, and it took me a while. And so it really came down to I thought everybody flowed, the arguments flowed really well. Everybody was kind of on point. It's obvious you guys are here for a reason in the finals. So it really came down to two things. One was the question about microaggression and bullying, and the op really sort of you got kind of left out in an island a little bit by kind of forgetting that the definition was just mildly irritating and not like bullying, and so you had to get off that bullying line really well. And I think you did as best as you could at that point, but the Gov did really, like, they nailed it at the end by saying that the resolution is annoying people, not annoying things. So whether microaggression makes mean that person is bad doesn't necessarily mean that, right? So that's why it's a microaggression. So that was an absolutely excellent argument, and that almost swayed me. But what really at the end it came down to was the weighing mechanism, which was self-interest. And had Gov gone with net benefits, I think it would have been a clear victory for me because a lot of the arguments that they were making were arguments like it amplifies the chaos and other people get dragged in. And so while really opposition in the end, in their final speech, they talked about how we're talking about self-interest, talking to friends will gather more support than talking to the person who created the problems. That was like kind of the convincing line to me because if it's about self-interest, yeah, I will talk to my friends over the person who's torturing me or microaggressing me or just mildly irritating because kind of talking to friends always wins. That's always the best thing, no matter what. So that's kind of what got me. But man, like I went back and forth so many times, and it's not like I see the solution, and I'm like not sad that because both you guys did incredibly well, and I think a 3-2 victory. It might be painful to be on the losing side of that, but it's a testament to just how close and how much on the razor's edge this argument went. So congratulations.
I can go next. I was also really close to voting for opposition on the microaggressions argument, and I think with just a little bit stronger of severity weighing, I probably would be there. I really narrowly vote for Gov in this debate, mainly because I think the PMR just does just by a hair's width enough to delineate some of the nuance and like what the actual comparative is in this debate. I think on the microaggressions argument specifically, the PMR tells me that if microaggressions are unintentional and non-malicious and are naive, a person is probably more likely to be responsive in a positive way to direct confrontation, or not even necessarily confrontation, but a less like behind your back gossip type approach than they would be if they were approached that way. I think both sides largely agree that people who are overtly discriminatory, bigoted, and hateful are kind of outside of the scope of where the core clash is because those acts go beyond kind of day-to-day commonplace annoyances to something a little bit more pernicious. I really admire the ops work in explaining, though, how these lines are a lot blurrier and a lot more subjective than I think the Gov team pretended to be. And I was actually like I was somewhat sympathetic, I think, to the op more than I otherwise would have been because of how the Gov team just kind of dismissed this. And I wanted to see a little bit more Gov engagement with like some of the nuance that came out in the op block about why microaggressions are so tricky because of the ways in which power structures operate. I end up mainly voting for Gov on the retaliation and like antagonism spiral effect that comes out. I think this is the highest probability argument in the round. I think it's the argument that wins the most cleanly under self-interest. I just feel like the most confident at the end of the debate that it's really clear to me that in like the cases that are left in the debate that I think are the most relevant and kind of focused on where the comparative is, this is probably what's most likely to happen in the majority of cases. I wanted both sides to do more weighing to tell me like, what proportion of these like annoying interactions or annoying people are microaggressions that happen in the workplace versus like run-of-the-mill social gossip versus like interpersonal rumors versus like other comments that don't kind of fit in anywhere. I feel like I'm left to kind of like figure a lot of that out for myself as a judge, which makes it a little bit trickier to kind of see how any of these arguments work neatly. But I end up voting Gov for those reasons. I think it's an excellent debate overall. It deserves to be a 3-2 because I think it's genuinely really close. I really enjoyed judging it.
I can go next. I actually had to change my ballot 3 times. I also felt that the microaggressions argument was very compelling, especially the line of argumentation that microaggressions are annoying and they may amount to a bigger problem. And you don't necessarily know until you talk to someone about this. And there are barriers to entry with like healthier options like talking to a therapist. But ultimately, what got me was the definition of the proposal, which is to talk with ill intent. And the PMR did collapse upon this and this definition wasn't contested by the leader of the opposition, that to speak ill is to approach with ill intentions. And the PMR did go into how creating this habit of shit talking is actually not a healthy habit. And in the case where there are microaggressions and you do need to vent to a friend, there's still a capacity to talk to the friend in a way that doesn't have ill intentions that follows the paradigm of Gov. So based on that definition and the fact that it did get threaded through to the rebuttal, I didn't hear a ton of it in the member of government speech. But I think that's because a lot of that time was spent refuting the leader of opposition's speech. I did ultimately vote Gov, but it was extremely close for me.
I ended up voting Gov for basically the same exact reason, which came down to the definition of speaking ill, because I feel like, yes, like the microaggressions point was also probably my favorite point in the round. I feel like Op could have even extended that further to talk about like the idea of like I feel like there's this idea now of like minority gossip networks and like kind of pointing out in certain industries like, oh, this person is actually like really bad to work with, like be careful, like watch what you say around them or things like that. And I think that that could have made it even stronger. But for me, and I think that that actually also ties in with ill will, because if you're kind of intentionally harming someone's reputation, but it's for the sake of a minority group. And I feel like that might have been a round cinching argument. But with, I did hear in the member of government, I even underlined it, talking to others isn't the same as ill will. So you can like, it's perfectly fine to just say like, oh yes, like this thing happened to me and it made me feel kind of weird. Like, can I talk to you about it, rather than saying, oh, this person is such a dick if they did this microaggression to me. But overall, like this was such a good round to watch. This is very fun. I did think that I was going to go off until the PMR. So I think it's just testament to like how good everything was in this debate. So thank you all.
Thank you all so
everybody.
much.
Congratulations.
Great
No,
round.
thank you.